In the last video, we talked about imagination as the natural consequence of mental development. We realized that it is part of human evolution to become rational people in control of their passions and emotions. Before we take a much closer look at the mental side of things, let's identify what represents the peak of emotional development. What should we aspire to with regard to emotions and feelings? The goal of emotional development is the ennoblement of feelings, which means the purification from negative, selfish, emotional complexes that we established during our lives. A master of emotion is a master of compassion. The ultimate goal of emotionality is to develop empathy for all and everyone. Ethics or morality is a mental conception of right. Ethics or morality is a mental system of values providing a basis for how we should treat one another. Values derive from our worldviews, which vary across cultures and generations. Although many ethical concepts and social norms change over time, it is crucial to agree on objective and universal ethical standards. Genuine ethics or morality should be both a timeless, universal, generic conception of right common to all people, and on the other hand, relative local conventions specific only to a certain time, a certain place, in a certain culture. Reality is vast, and there is room for universal ethics as well as relative conventions. Absolute values and relativism are not contradictions. They both exist beside each other at any time, in the same way as the concepts of up and down, cold and warm exist beside each other at all times. The key is to recognize what is what. So, what is the origin of emotional negative complexes? Emotional mental qualities of a person arise naturally from personal experience as you grow in a healthy and safe environment. But if life conditions are full of difficulties and challenges, as they always tend to be, such as social pressure, bad education, bad upbringing, bad influence, traumas, etc., a child develops unconscious defense mechanisms and emotional mental complexes to cope with those types of hardship. The coping structures are only poor substitutes for the actual qualities. They corrupt the natural unfolding character of a young person. During our lives, we experience a lot of negative feelings such as hatred, anger, envy, fear, sadness, etc. In many situations, we swing between the extremes and feel passively exposed to the daily emotional fluctuations. What we tend to forget is that the mind can control emotions. We can experience feelings passively, and we can also create them actively through the power of imagination. Any undesired negativity that we feel at the mercy of is, at the end of the day, self-inflicted due to lack of mental discipline. When we unconsciously foster a negative feeling during a lifetime, we respond more easily to the circumstances that stimulate us to express that particular negative feeling. In this way, emotional complexes can grow strong and tint our perception of the world. Our mind, which is meant to reflect reality, misinterprets the experiences due to the presence of coping mechanisms and negative complexes. We unconsciously create false beliefs about ourselves and the world, and our thinking becomes full of fictions and illusions. Over time, it becomes increasingly difficult to control the inner negativity, and we become slaves to their so-called character flaws. The emotional development is about purifying our inner life from such negative feelings in a process of ennoblement, so that our overall temperament becomes balanced and we gain a conscious control of our emotional expressions. The overcoming of emotional negativity and the cultivation of positive feelings is achieved by striving after ideals. Ideals are goals for emotional development that can be best reached by following role models or idols that represent certain emotional features or feelings. Idols are desirable and sometimes necessary for some people at certain stages in their development. An example would be Teenagers who find their role models from sports or music, they look up to adult people in search of idols they can adore because they seek to orientate themselves in the world by observation and imitation. Religions also utilize the power of idols. The believers are supposed to be inspired by the good examples and strive to imitate their role models. Admiration of sacred or mundane figures is always based on emotionality. It's the strong inner emotional stimulation that many people derive from their devotion and worship, which lets them step out of their daily routine to experience something much more profound and elevating. People at this stage of development might be self-delusional with regard to understanding reality, and their minds might be filled with dogmas of various kinds. However, the strong devotion in their emotional, religious or secular zeal lends some meaning to their lives, and taking it away from them would strip them of a cause for their motivation. That's why it's crucial to cultivate elevating feelings without dogmatic and delusional thinking, so that critical thinking isn't neglected. We must be ready to embrace our emotional development and recognize that there is no knowledge to be derived from emotionality. However, wonderful devotional experiences shall inspire people to think the noblest thoughts and feel the noblest feelings they are capable of. A noble thought, noble action will follow. And what is the best way to express noble emotionality? It's by serving. It's by striving to be a good person with empathy. What does it mean to serve? Service means to make a contribution which is directed at other people, which is selfless. That doesn't mean that service doesn't benefit the individual. On the contrary, selfless action always benefits the individual, but in a much more wider sense than a mere and immediate satisfaction of bodily and emotional desires. Service is about doing work for a larger unit than just oneself. It's a contribution to the well-being of another person or a group which one is a part of. Making sure everyone is well means that the individual is performing the best service to both the group and him or herself. Individuals can only thrive if their group, which is the society, thrives as well. That's why the highest good that one can do for oneself is to serve others. It's about mutual beneficence that we can call common good. Related to the concept of service is the concept of duty, which means personal responsibility. Freedom presupposes responsibility. Duty is what you have to do in certain circumstances of life in specific relations to fulfill common good. A primitive, selfish attitude considers duty a burden. A mature outlook recognizes that duty is a necessity for a harmonious society. But duty is not just a necessity, it should always be an act of self-expression and free decision, and therefore a cause for self-fulfillment. This is so because personal duties in life should be self-chosen, and it's absurd to violate people's freedom by imposing on them duties which they aren't suitable for. And probably the greatest duty we can assume in life is the choice of profession. Through our profession we benefit society in one way or another. Doing our daily job is just another word for performing duty or serving society. And this should always be self-chosen as a result of the knowledge of what one can do best. This is so because what we can do best is what gives us most happiness. This is so because it is human nature to express oneself in activity, and being able to express yourself generates a feeling of inner satisfaction. There are different ways of self-expression to benefit society. Intelligent people spread knowledge through science, philosophy and literature. Creative people create culture through music, fine art, performance, literature and other forms. Analytical people might do marketing to benefit economy. Practical types help with product or service-oriented tasks such as craftsmen, sellers, etc. There are countless ways to serve society. Individual and common well-being depend on each other. Gee, how did we get here? We've started with ethics and now we are concluding with job tips. Well, that's a very ethical thing to do. Get yourself a job that you're most suitable for, and if you have no plan, then go make some experiences to find out. Once you do it, you'll be happy. Today we discovered that the development of feelings means the liberation from negative, selfish, inner complexes, that it is about ennobling emotion through empathy and compassion, and that the best way to do this is to identify your real duty in life, because it is in human nature to become involved in society. Next, I would like to throw light on the structure and evolution of the mind, what mentality is and how it works. Stay tuned for the next mind-blowing video experience.
Once again.